Hey guys, Dennis here.
Chrissy.
Muddy Water Search and Recovery. Welcome to part 2 of the timeline in the Randy Leach case. Our previous video we covered April 15th of 1988, and we're going to cover April 16th, 1988 today. So let's just jump right into it.
Jump right in. You want to start or you want me to start?
Go for it.
Okay. 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. Steve Hatch sees Randy. Randy appeared to be very intoxicated and was leaning up against the house. Randy was not drinking at the time. 12 a.m. Paul Finley sees Randy. Around this time, Paul goes into the house. Randy came in and laid down on the bench. 12 a.m. Adrian Swan, John Burns, and Ted Reed. Randy was taken to the backyard and sat down in a lawn chair. 12 a.m., 12:30 a.m., Jeannie Wolf sees Randy. She says she sees him just prior to going to bed. Randy is walking towards the garage area. 12 a.m., Janice Pitts returned to the party. 12:10, Randy and Ted Reed were sitting on the hood of a car in front of the garage. 12:25, James Burns. The bonfire saw out Randy. He could hardly walk, would only stay in one place for a minute or two. So I'm assuming that's the whole people sitting at the bonfire. 12:30, 1:30, David, oh my gosh. Oliveras and Steve Hatch leave the party. Let's see. 12:30 to 1 a.m. Robbie Wolf sees Randy. The second time he saw Randy, it was 1 hour later around 1 a.m. Robbie was inside the house and saw Randy standing outside the door. Robbie approached and noticed Randy was swaying, and Randy appeared confused. Between 1:30 and 2 a.m., Robbie was sitting in the living room in the chair when Robbie noticed Randy standing in the living room. Then an unknown person told Randy, "Why don't you go sit down or lay down and relax?" 12:30 to 12:50 a.m. Scott sees Randy. He talks to Randy in the driveway for about 10 to 15 minutes. 12:35, Jeannie Wolf goes to bed. 12:40, Leanne Turner says Lee Ayers was there. Kelly Powell is spinning Randy around in a swivel chair in the garage. Randy is heard saying, "Give me my keys, I want to go home," by Leanne Turner. 12:40 to 1 a.m. Stephanie Brerett returns to the party. Stephanie asks Kim what happened to Randy since he didn't drive. Kim said John Burns was taking him home. It's unclear what exact time this was, though. 12:45, Leanne Turner. Randy was in the garage. Dusty, Brian, and Kevin Smith were there. All three are brothers, no relation to Scott Smith. 12:45, John Burns returns to the party with his brother James. 12:55, James Burns and Derek McCollum. How do you say that? McCollum. Randy was out by the fire again. Powell, Marble, and Scott Smith were there playing in the fire. 1 a.m., Steve Hatch and Tracy Gilbert leave the party. 1 a.m., John Burns sees Randy. John sees Randy sitting by his car on a bar stool, Randy's car. Burns assists Randy in looking for his keys. John tells Randy to sit and lay down in his car while John looked for his keys. Randy does so. John asks Bobby Wilson about Randy's keys, but he never replied. He asks Marble, who tells him to ask Kelly. It didn't state Kaylee Powell's reply. Your turn.
1 a.m., Billy Findley goes to bed. States Randy was still present when he went to bed at 1 a.m. States Randy was still there when he went to bed, so was Marble and Powell. Billy says when Randy first arrived, he was straight, but the last time he saw him, he was drunk. 1 a.m., David Metzler sees Randy. David was laying on the couch watching Willy Wonka when Randy staggered towards the bathroom. Randy was rambling, but David could not understand him. 1 a.m., Brenda Burns sees Randy. Randy is in the garage, passed out on the hood of an unknown car, and there is no one around him. 1 a.m., James Burns led Randy back inside the house, afraid he might get burned. Randy was worse than ever. He could hardly sit on a stool. His head would just fall back against the wall, and he had no control over his muscles. 1 a.m., Dwayne Irwin goes to bed. 1:10 a.m., Steve Hatch and Tracy Gilbert return to the party. 1:10 a.m., Scott Smith, Robbie Marble, and Kelly Powell leave. 1:10 a.m., John Burns saw Randy by his car and said he was disoriented. They lay him down in the front seat of Randy's car, said he went looking for the keys because Randy said he didn't have them.
1:15, Brenda Burns, Tracy Gilbert, Misty Williams, and Deanna Franklin leave the party. 1:30 to 1:45 a.m., Steve Hatch, David
Oliveris
and Ed Moore leave the party. All three men had words with some guy over Tracy Gilbert and then the three men left. Tracy didn't go home with Steve. 1:30 a.m., Lisa Gay Vaughn witnessed account. Returning from the movies with her younger brother, Lisa Donovan and Donna Donovan saw a dark car and a motorcycle parked on the east side of the road close to the Rainbolt's driveway. There were two white males standing in between the car and motorcycle. 1:30, David Metzler goes to bed. 1:30, Paul Finley and Mike Johnson leave the party. When they were leaving, they saw Randy sitting in the front seat, driver's side of a 1977 Malibu two-door Classic, either brown or red in color. The door was open. The car was parked by the house, about 4 cars away from the house. Paul asked Randy if he was driving. Randy didn't answer. 1:30, John and James Burns. John saw James with Holly Brewer. Holly was drunk and James told John to follow him and they would take Holly home and then take Randy home. 1:30, Stephanie Barrett, Deanna Franklin, and Janice Pitts leave. Stephanie leaves to take Deanna Franklin and Janice Pitts home. 1:30, Brenda Burns and Janice Pitts return to the party. 1:30 to 1:45, Ann Irwin sees Randy. Randy is lying on the floor by the front door. Goodness. 1:45 to 1:50, John and James return. They returned. John doesn't see Randy's car. 1:50, John and James said when they returned, Randy and the car were gone. Said Randy couldn't have driven. 1:55, Ann Irwin. Randy was in line to use the bathroom. 2 a.m., Chris Finley leaves the party. He followed Paul Finley and Keith Finley home. Each had their own cars. 2 a.m., Holly Brower leaves. She leaves. Most people are still there. Randy seemed messed up. 2 a.m. to 2:30, Ted Reed sees Randy. This is the last time he saw Randy, either by the garage or fire. He's unsure which one. 2 a.m. to 2:30, John Byrne leaves. John says there are still about a dozen people there, some of who he remembered seeing is Bobby Wilson, Tammy Trotter, Scott Smith, Ted Reed, and Richard. He doesn't recall seeing Marble or Powell. Go.
2 a.m., Tammy Trotter sees Randy. Randy uses the bathroom inside. When done, he stumbles outside. That was the last she saw of him. 2 a.m., Scott Smith, Robbie Marble, and Kelly Powell return to the party. Kelly is asleep in the car. Scott doesn't see Randy or his car. 2 a.m., Tammy Trotter, Wilson, and Smith now said Mrs. Irwin told her to take Randy outside because he might fall and get hurt. Tammy said she watched Randy go down the driveway disoriented towards his car. 2:05 a.m. 2:05 a.m. Robbie Wolf goes to bed. At around 2:05, Wolf goes to bed, but he doesn't see Randy in the living room, and he did not recall hearing the door slam or having anyone else leave the house.
2:05 a.m. James and John Burns. James tells John to take James' car and go on home. James says he'll just walk home, about a half a mile. 2:20, Scott Smith, Robbie Marble, and Kelly Powell leave. They leave to take Kelly home. I'm apparently
It's in Lawrence.
Scott gets to his house around 4 a.m. 2:30 a.m. Stephanie Burrett returns to the party. Stephanie goes in the house to watch Willy Wonka until 3 a.m. 2:30, Janice Pitts and Stephanie leave the party. 3 a.m. Brenda Burns and Edwin Smith leave the party. She also notices that Billy Lanou and Kevin Smith are leaving as well. Janice Pitts is still there. 3 a.m. Pam, I'm so sorry. How do you say that? Gillamy? I hope that's right. Leaves. She didn't see Randy or know if he left. 3 a.m. Stephanie Brett goes to bed. 4 a.m. Bobby Wilson goes to bed. 4 a.m. James Burns says he left the party and walked home. 4:05 Ted Reed says he was drunk, drives home about 4 miles. Why doesn't James just catch a ride? Oh, you can have that one. Was that 6 a.m.? Alberta, Harold, and Richard Rose. Alberta wakes me up and tells me Randy isn't home.
And again, this is Harold talking.
This is Harold talking, okay. Alberta wakes me up and tells me Randy isn't home. We called Richard Rose, Alberta's brother, police officer in Lawrence, Kansas. 6:20 a.m. Steve Doherty drives up the highway in front of our place and around the road in back of our house at about 20 miles an hour, looking back at our place all the way. No one should have known Randy was missing at this time.
And that was the Leach property.
Yes. 6:35, Richard Rose, Harold, and Alberta. Richard Rose arrived and we decided to call Teresa Holden's mother. She said Teresa stayed all night with Tammy Sanchez in Lawrence. We decided to drive there. 7 a.m. Harold, Richard Rose, Teresa, Billy Turner, and Brian Smith. Teresa says she hasn't seen Randy in about 3 weeks. We go back home. We learn later she talked to Randy that evening about 7 p.m. 7:30 a.m.
And again, the third person talking here is Harold.
Yes. 7:30 a.m. Richard Rose. Richard Rose decides to drive to Ann Irwin's, where the party was. He tells me to stay with Alberta as we both are very upset. 7:45 a.m. Richard Rose. Burns Boys was out at their pond by the road. Not sure which ones. Richard stopped and gets directions. Go.
At 7:55 a.m., Richard Rose. Richard talks to Kim Irwin. She says that James Burns took Randy home. He noticed the property is all cleaned up. 8 o'clock a.m., Alberta, Harold, and Richard Brown. Alberta calls Richard Brown a classmate. Richard says he did not go to the party or see Randy. And later, they find that he was at the party and he did see Randy. 8:15 a.m. Richard Rose. Richard gets back. Alberta and Harold decide to go to the Irwins. Alberta and Harold. Alberta goes to the house and Irwin offers Alberta a beer. Alberta says, "No, we don't want. We just want our son." Ann says Randy had taken Scott Smith home.
8:35 a.m., Harold in Alberta. I go to the fire where a man and woman are finished raking up the remains of a small fire. There was nothing there.
They knew nothing.
Yeah, they knew nothing.
And again, it's Harold talking there.
This is Harold at 8:40 a.m. I start back to the house and Kim Irwin is in the car. I ask her if she's seen Randy. She thought James Burns took Randy home. Kim seemed so upset that she was almost in tears. 8:50 a.m. between Alberta and Harold. Went to Scott Smith's house. Said he hadn't seen Randy since the party. He didn't appear to have been asleep. He said he got home around 5 a.m. 9 a.m. between Alberta and Harold. Arrived back at James Burns. He and a friend, Mike Donovan, were dressed sitting on the divan. Mike said he was home all night. James said he walked home around 4 a.m. Mike told two of my brothers the next day he was at the party, but stayed around the cars. 9:15 a.m., Alberta and Harold. Alberta and I arrived back home. There was no question in our minds. Something terrible had happened to Randy. 9:30 to 10 a.m., David Metzler wakes up. A couple of people were cleaning up in the garage and others sitting around drinking coffee and eating. 4, that jumped to 4 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay, David Dotson sees Randy sighting, walking on Mass Street in Lawrence, Kansas.
Now, keep in mind, there's going to be a couple reported sightings here that took place after the disappearance.
5:30 p.m., Robbie Robinette and Stacy Lang see Randy, or a sighting. Robbie and Stacy see Randy and an unknown female driving a car that matches the description of Alberta's car in Bonner Springs. 12 a.m., Holly Brewer sees Randy. She thinks she saw Randy as a passenger in Robbie Marble's car by the Walmart on K7. She rates this encounter a 4 on a scale of 1 out of 10. Now, what that means is that's how close she thinks it was to Randy, that it could have been Randy.
So, guys, as you saw, again, multiple variations of what happened that night. And again, we're not in any way trying to say that this is 100% accurate. But this is in the documents, in the police reports, statements that people made to law enforcement. So we wanted to build our foundation based on that. Any inconsistencies, any changes, anything, please make note of that. Sunday night, our live feed, we will do an open discussion covering the entire timeline. And we need you to bring those up during that live feed so we can all break this down and build this back to a more...
This live feed's going to be extraordinary because I know you guys out there are going to have tons of questions and probably have your own theories, and that's wonderful. Bring it, please. We need them. But hopefully this gives you guys an insight of what might have happened the 15th and the 16th. And so on.
See, I know for me personally, this gives me about 15 different trails to go down.
Unfortunately,
And we've been, every one of these trails we have been diving deep into for over a year now.
Right. And we'll look at something, we'll read something, and Denny and I, Megan and Alex and everybody, will look at each other and just, what? But we still follow it. We dig into it. Because we're not going to turn it down.
And you see, we have so many things, and we'll dig into this more Sunday. So many people who claimed they were not at the party, yet so many reports that they were.
It's like they didn't expect someone to see them. You know, that's what I get. Like, really? Whatever. But anyway.
So don't forget, join us this Sunday night. If you haven't subscribe to the channel and turn the notifications on, please do. You don't want to miss this open discussion. You guys are incredible when it comes to these discussions.
Yes.
Definitely looking forward to what you guys have to say on this.
Again, we want to thank Jennifer for putting this all together for us. You did an amazing job. We love you. Amazing work. She did amazing.
She is awesome.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
and the hours she has put
Right.
in to working on this case.
Yeah. But
So, guys, make sure you join us Sunday night. I know I keep repeating myself on that, but this is going to be...
this is big. So,
looking forward to this.
right.
Till next time, you guys stay safe. Let's continue to do everything that we can to help bring Grandy home.
Bye, guys.